Releasing in selected cinemas in Australia in a week's time, courtesy of Bounty Films, is a film called Hungry Ghost Diner. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the director of Hungry Ghost Diner, John Wee. And welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Good to talk to you. Now, this film surprised me. It's a very subtle ghost story. It's not one of those obvious um, uh, uh, films that sort of hit you over the head and all that sort of thing. It's a very subtle film. Tell me about the origins of the story. How did it all come about?
Well, thanks for asking. Yes, it's a horror is not how I imagine myself. Not I didn't imagine myself making my first film, horror adjacent. But it happened, I think, sometime in 2017 when my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, she passed away. And I'm not very close, in honest, not very close to my father's side of the family. I previously, before the film, I spoke almost no Chinese, any kinds of Chinese, like Hakka Chinese or Cantonese or Mandarin. And so I was very reluctant to return to my father's hometown, which is sort of like a rural town called Slim River. But I did make the trip back. Long story short, and I was surprised that we were able to still communicate, through hand gestures and the like. And I felt like a certain warmth that regrettably didn't feel prior to that point. So it felt like it's almost like a reunion. It felt like a reunion party, if you will. I hate to use the term, but it was a funeral. And so I thought this was a rather ironic feeling to come away with, and I thought uh, very closely mirroring our attitudes to another festival in Malaysia that we celebrate here in Malaysia, which is the Hungry Ghost Festival. And so because of that link, that inspired me to write the film. Yeah. If if anything, it's about um, being scared of something you don't understand. So that is so if you notice in the film, we present almost all the incidences twice, but with different contexts. And the first time you meet something unfamiliar or something strange, you are rather hesitant or cautious about it, or even scared of it. But the second time, it almost has a completely different, gives you almost completely different feeling, because that thing that you first come across that has now been a bit more familiar with you, and so yeah, and so that's how we approach writing the film.
Well, well done on that, because I found the connection between life and death, about spirituality, about food, and about connections within families in a slightly different perspective. Really interesting. It's as I said, the film surprised me, and in some respects, a hungry ghost diner. I know it refers to festival, as you say, etc. It's almost misleading because it's
It's also a double meaning. I mean, well, it's also referring to the mother who is a Hungry Ghost diner.
yep.
So yeah, it's a title that it's a bit. I don't know if we had to do this film again, whether we would have used the same title. The Mandarin title was meant to be the name of the coffee shop itself.
Ah.
Uh, yeah, but we took a lot of feedback from different producers and so on, and we decided to still go with the Hungry Ghost Diner title because it was easy to refer to the film for marketing reasons. I regret, yes, I regret half of the audiences that expected a scary movie because of the word ghost has that expectation as well. Yeah.
But that's fine because as I was watching the film, I thought, this film is going in directions that I wasn't immediately aware of, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's a
Thank you.
really nicely told story, and as I say, it's about family and about that transition, life and death, and about understanding, which I found really interesting. So, you said, John, this is your first feature film?
Yeah, so I've been in the industry since 2013 or 12.
Yeah.
So I've been making films for over a decade now. Short films mostly, commercials, a lot of commercials, very small commercials. We don't do the big budget ones. We do the really no the ones that nobody wants to do. So we that's how we survive. Our bread and butter corporate documentaries and videos, branded content videos, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And obviously, we've been my friend Benji, who became my partner, producing partner. Uh, uh, we set up the company obviously with dreams to make films, and they never seem to materialize. Every year, it would be the same, the same run of the mill corporate events, corporate jobs, that sort of thing. But it wasn't until the pandemic that the government announced that it would give us out opportunities to apply for grants, and these grants were meant to resuscitate the film industry or rejuvenate the film industry. But it also allowed first-time filmmakers like ourselves to apply should we have ideas for feature-length work. And with Hungry Ghost Diner, we managed to I think we managed to get into a lab as well by that point. So we went into the Singapore International Film Festival's sort of like incubation lab. So we were one of the projects in the lab, and then we were offered the grant by the government, and that really kickstarted our journey. The grant wasn't for the entire film; it was, but it proved to be like substantial. So we managed to raise like 60% of the budget based on the grant, and so that allowed us then with a few personal loans and from family and friends and all that, we managed to cobble together the remaining budget required for the film. So yeah, so that's how we got around to making this first film. Many false starts before I made my first feature. But I'm glad this is the feature that I managed to make as my debut, because I felt it's very personal. So I thought it's nice and fitting that it should be my first feature and first work narrative work. Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, well done on that. As I said,
Yeah.
it works very well.
Thank you.
Did it take you a while to get the script, the screenplay right? Because that's always an issue, especially for a first-time feature film.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, what you watched was probably we call it draft 13.3. So that means there were like probably like 20 or 27 variants of the movie, variations of the movie. And the reason the biggest change was actually, so I started writing the script right after my grandmother's funeral. It was quite a different movie, and then we did pivot a few times, and there were like it was more episodic maybe in nature, and it wasn't until the pandemic that really forced us to rewrite the film into its final format, final form. And as you know, we do incorporate the pandemic as well. It was a
Mm,
decision that we had to make. In fact, we were advised not to actually, because it dated the film, so it's something like a period film now, because it looks back on a time that the pandemic lockdowns were happening and so on. But we felt that because well, I make films sort of to make sense of the world, because if I could write a book instead, I would have written a book. But so we make films for different reasons, and the reason I make a film is I'm trying to make sense of the world, maybe for my own self, but also maybe as a way for other people to share, who might share my curiosities or feelings. They might be able to relate. So I made the film in this way, and I thought if I didn't address probably the most traumatic thing that happened in my lifetime, and it's something that I think everybody went through,
Mm.
in some form or another. Yeah, I'm sure in Australia it was pretty
Yep.
bad, the lockdown and so on. Yeah, so I thought it'd be very strange to just gloss over something that was so, I would say, so it affected so many people's,
Yeah.
the lives of so many people. And as soon as the lockdowns were over, people acted like nothing happened. So we just lost 2 years of our lives. So I just didn't, it didn't make sense to me. So I felt like it was something I needed to express. Also, the structure of the film was such that because you had this incident that happened 20 years ago, and then 20 years later, it's right smack in the year 2020. So it's very hard to escape like any kind of
Mm.
reference to the pandemic, so
Yes.
I thought, yeah, we might as well embrace that. Yeah, so that was part of what the screenplay was telling us to do, so we did that. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Team
No,
draft.
that worked fine for me. I thought that was quite appropriate, almost before and after, that sort of thing. So I think that was quite effective. So tell me, as you say, with a limited budget, how easy was it to find the cast for the film and the van and other locations?
Right. I mean, so yeah, with a limited budget. So I think our budget was no more than in terms of US dollars, 200,000 US dollars maybe. So we wanted to, the script that we wrote required a shoot of like 28 days. And so we thought the challenge was going to be how to show the Ghost Festival. The first one was going to be a very difficult one. Was how are we going to show the Ghost Festival, and of course the cast was going to be instrumental as well.
Mm.
Thankfully, getting a get there are a lot there's a lot of talent in Malaysia. Thankfully, we actually form a lot of our cast members are used in Singapore and in the region. Chinese speaking cast members are used in this way. So we have a very active TV scene. I suspect a bit like Australia.
Yeah.
You do have a lot of TV, maybe a bit like Home and Away and Neighbors, or so
Yes.
we have films like this. Yeah, we have a series like this here,
Yeah.
and occasionally you have interesting talent. I mean, not all of them are good, but like quite a number of them have. And so we noticed like we were able to tap on that. Like, so we if you notice some of these talents like Sam Chong and Eric Chen, they are like veterans in the TV industry. So they're very well known within the TV circle, but outside they're not famous, I suppose. And Chen Kiat Yok, who plays Bonnie, she's actually a singer. So she's a trained singer. She's an entertainer. Yeah, she triple threat dance. She sings. She acts. So we thought we haven't seen her. The last time we seen her in a big film was sometime maybe 10 to 12 years ago. She played a supporting role in one of the major festive movies. In Malaysia, festive movies are a very big business. And so, but since then, hasn't quite made her mark in films. And so we thought, oh, it's interesting. She's kind of like been around and has a lot of experience, but at the same time, she doesn't have all those bad habits that you pick up on soap operas,
Mm.
if you continue to work. So I thought she was very interesting because she really brought something fresh to the role. And so the casting was quite easy in that way, but remains to be seen how we would. So at the time, it remained to be seen how we would sort of like construct the Ghost Festival. And we did a lot of recce. So we went everywhere. Started at my father's hometown, and then we started to circle wider until we found just next to my father's hometown a small town called Berang Station. It was a town situated. This is like a small sleepy village situated next to a train station
Mm.
where it gets its name from. And it it so happens that when we got lost, actually we got lost looking for my father's hometown at that town. And when we were there, it was like it was funny because it was like the sort of like the cinema gods were trying to lead us
Mm.
to find the town, because the town hosts the close of the Hungry Ghost Festival every year. It has done for 50 years since the World War, period. And so they told us like, well, actually the Ghost Festival happens every year. It's only closed down for the pandemic that one time. But every year since since the 1945 period, they host a very large event. And so with the negotiations with the townspeople, who are very friendly, as you expect, rural townspeople, they're very curious and very warm. So they allowed us to shoot the real festival. So what you see in Hungry Ghost Diner is actually the real Hungry Ghost Festival that's happening in 2022. And we only had to do VFX work to remove some of the for the for the for the flashback scenes. We had to remove some of the face masks from because everybody was still wearing these face masks from the pandemic. So we removed quite a lot of face masks in the early scenes to show it as the year 2000. So we managed to somehow not spend the money to stage the festival, which is very useful, because otherwise that would take up probably all of our budget.
Mm.
And I think because we come from myself and Benji, we make corporate videos for a living. So we use a lot of the techniques, like our crews are very small. Like we're not as as large as some of the other film crews. So that's how we managed to deliver the film. I mean, I also, for post production, I did almost everything on the film. So even for the screening in Australia, a lot of the files, I was still working on the files, sending them back and forth to Bounty. Uh, just up to last week. So we were like, yeah. So everything is done in house. That's how we managed to take it, to make the most out of our budget. Yeah.
Well, well done on that. It's yes, it makes it a very current film. So well done on doing that.
Thank you, thank you.
It also looked like, I must commend you on, is it puppetry that's used in the
Yep.
film?
There's glove puppetry. Yeah, there's a lot of glove puppetry. So
Yeah.
uh, one of the interesting things in researching the film is uh, the, the origin of the Ghost Festival comes from a sort of like a folklore story about Mulian, who saves his mother, or Mulian, who rescues his mother.
Hmm.
And he's a monk who one day he gets a vision of his mother being a hungry ghost, and he feels that it would not be right for him to reach enlightenment. He's a bodhisattva, which is like one step away from reaching enlightenment. And so he felt it would not be right for him to reach enlightenment if he cannot save others as well. So he decided that he would do something about his mother's plight. And so he it started this whole thing where the offerings were put out on the 15th day of the 7th month. So the start of the Ghost Festival, the commemoration of the hungry spirits. And so actually the interesting thing is the folklore is told through oral tradition, like as how I would just tell my daughter, or my father would tell me, or so on. But it also is expressed in puppetry, glove puppetry,
Hmm.
and as well as Chinese opera. So this is something that, like the Beijing opera, Peking opera, they would probably be able to perform it. So I thought what's interesting is like there are many ways, and of course our film is sort of like a modern transliteration of this tale. Bonnie saves her mother in sort of like a roundabout way. And so I thought it was interesting to show also as chapter markers, sort of like the Mulian's journey through the glove puppetry, which is something that is sort of like a hidden, soon to be lost art, art form. Yeah, it's not practiced it's not commonly practiced. So we thought it's interesting that we would show that as well. It's I thought it was interesting to draw parallels from the original story as well.
Ah.
Uh, just yeah, just as a way to sort of reinforce the sort of like the subtext for the audience. Yeah.
Oh, very well done. Yes, and no, I really enjoyed that. I got a great deal out of it. So, now I know the film is about to be released in Australia. I know it's going to be screening at Chinatown Cinema, I think, in Melbourne, September. But
Yep.
the film has already screened. Has it elsewhere around the world? And what sort of responses have you received?
Well, thanks. I mean, we launched the film last year, exactly last year, in the Ghost Festival of in Malaysia. Um, we actually prior to that, we actually had like a world premiere in Korea, and it was quite an interesting experience. I think it was particularly moving because my actors told me that they have never been to number one, never been to some of them have never been to Korea. Secondly, they also mentioned that they've never been to a film festival ever.
Mm,
So this was their first film festival experience. And the late Sam Chong, who plays the Uncle Akyu, he actually told me that he actually thanked me after the festival when we were at the airport, saying that he's never actually stepped on the red carpet as well.
mm,
So it's like his first red carpet experience. He so this was something that I obviously I cherish we were not in competition. It was quite a ordinary sort of like selection. But we did pick up a award unexpectedly. So after we returned to Malaysia, funnily enough, my producer had to had to buy another plane ticket to return to Korea to pick up a prize because they no, I guess nobody expected us to win also. So we also had to we had to fly. They had to fly him back to pick up the NetPack award. And we then launched the film a month later in Malaysia, and I think there were about 10 or 11,000 tickets bought. So 10 about more than 10,000 people watched the film. So I'm happy it reached
mm.
a decent audience. I mean, it'd be nice to have been going further, but I think we were being squeezed out by some of the action movies that were meant to come out in that same time.
Yeah.
So we had a good run, and it was then distributed to Netflix Southeast Asia. So we also managed to go to some festivals while we were on Netflix, Q Cinema, and there is a Looking Glass one in Milan. But the biggest, I would say, the most the most memorable one for me would be Rotterdam. We were selected for Rotterdam, and the audience in Rotterdam was so warm. They were it's the
Mm,
I think the halls were so huge. They were like I think they were like there was a 500 seater hall or a 300 seater hall, and we I think more than 1,000 people probably watched our film while we were uh
mm,
in Holland. And it just gave me this feeling that perhaps there is an interest by the Chinese diaspora outside of Malaysia, more so than within this region, because maybe we take things for granted. It's just at our doorstep, so it's not so interesting maybe. So we actually got better response from overseas audiences than local ones. We have some supporters in Malaysia, but I would say like the really passionate ones are like from the overseas markets. Um, we have people who hate our film as well. I mean, like we have people who really dislike. Maybe it's a little too slow for them. Maybe. Yeah, and but I think what's interesting is, and I read all the comments online and stuff. It doesn't. I'm the type of person who, it's almost like because you write this a visual, film is such a visual medium. It's hard you cannot tell what's on screen. You can't. Otherwise you write a book, right? I mean,
yep.
so it's a very non-literal medium, And so it's very difficult to see if people actually understood what you're trying to communicate through the film. So I often I would read comments. In fact, I probably read all the comments that people would write. And but I think, and some people really dislike the film, and it's hard not to take that personally. But I think what really make it worthwhile is like I received like handwritten notes from audience members, and like they tell me that it's really helped them reconnect with their parents or their family members, and that's actually pretty much what you make the film for, really. So that makes it all worthwhile. So we're very excited to share this with Australia. Of course, we have a lot of friends in Australia and family in Australia, but it's also our worldwide release. It's in conjunction with our worldwide release. So I think from September onwards, there will be like it will be on some global platforms, VODs, and it will be available on DVD and physical media, I think. So yeah, we're excited. We just seeing for what the future holds. We even if it turns out not to make money, that's fine. I guess we're kind of used to that. Yeah, we want to share it with as many people as possible. That's our goal. Yeah.
That's great. No, it's great to get the film out there, and well done on that, especially considering it's your first feature film. So
Thank you.
again, well done, and Bounty picking it up in Australia, which is fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
looking forward.
So has that given you now the taste to make another film?
Well, I mean, it had been very hectic when we launched the film, and right after the film, you put so much energy into making a film that you kind of feel quite knackered after everything is like sort of like out. And once the adrenaline has left your body, you kind of slump. But I've recovered since then, and have some ideas for new films and stuff. But it goes back to this whole thing where how are we going to get funding for the films that we want to
Mm,
make? And it's difficult because the films that are very close to us may not necessarily translate to what the industry is looking for at the moment. Like, maybe more action films or like real horror genre films.
yeah.
So yeah, so what we want to make these kind of like mixed genre or like
Mm,
more heartfelt kind of stories. Yeah, they could be it could be difficult to pitch. I mean, we have some ideas, so hopefully, yeah, hopefully we are able to meet with people or meet with an opportunity to be able to fund our film. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Right now, I guess the only thing we can do is to prepare. So what we're doing is we're preparing and we are having meetings and stuff. But yeah. So hopefully we'll have some more films coming up. I don't know how many films I have in me, so we'll just see how just see how many it goes. And there's such a it's such a arduous experience. I don't know how some of my friends are able to make one film every 6 months because it's like it takes so much out of you, every time.
Of course, I absolutely understand that. I speak to so many filmmakers, and of course, it's a big process and pre-production, and obviously the marketing and everything that goes into it. It's I understand. Well, hopefully you'll be able to make another film, and I think there's nothing wrong at all in making a film that's a bit different, that's a bit niche. That it doesn't have to be the standard action film or anything like that. For me, it's always about the story. And if it's an interesting or good story, as is the case in Hungry Ghost Diner, then go for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now, my Zoom is telling me that I'm running out of time. So, look, it's been great talking to you, John. John, who's the director of Hungry Ghost Diner, on release in Australia from the start of September. And it's certainly worth having a look at, a film that will defy your expectations. And thanks so much for talking with me.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Thanks. You have a good one.
You too. All the best. See you later. Bye
Thanks.
bye.
See you. Bye bye.